with Democratic lawmakers. In other words, the message they seem to be sending here is they want to do something constructive, and it seems to me be very clear. This is not just partisan politics. Whatever their political leanings are, and you imagine most of them would lean away from, let's say, the Republican Party, but they're not simply meeting with members on the other side of the aisle and then politicizing it. They are clearly making the statement, we don't like this guy in the White House. This is about decency and behavior, and the behavior obviously leading up to the election, and then even if you give him a clean slate, the behavior since then, that is disqualifying in polite society. And what the Warriors are here doing is saying, not political. It's not about partisan politics. It's not about if we vote Democrat or Republican or lean right or left. It's we don't like the occupant, the present occupant of the White House. That's the message, and I'm glad they made it very clear.
Go ahead, Will.
You know, I mean, from day one, I have never said that somebody should or must visit the White House. I believe it's an honor. It's an honor that you can choose to accept or you can suggest is not one that you feel is honorable at the moment. I don't begrudge anybody's individual decisions, and as far as a team, if it comes to the Golden State Warriors, they unanimously agree on that proposition, then that's fine for them to make as a decision. And as you point out, Mac, the invitation's been rescinded anyway. President Trump has not invited them to the White House. I think the point that I would like to focus on is this. It's the positive statement that they are making. They are doing something in lieu of going to the White House. They're still going to Washington, D.C., and as we just heard from Antoinetta Collins, they are taking kids from Kevin Durant's hometown to tour, along with the team, the National Museum of African American History. I think that is absolutely awesome. I think it is inspiring. I think it's what role models do. I think this speaks volumes about who the Golden State Warriors are. So I guess when I look at this entire story, you know, I hate that our entire culture has become so politicized. I am of the belief that for some reason when we view each other, it's some of the first things we look at and we pour everything through is what each other's political opinions are. I hate that that's where we are today. But I applaud the Golden State Warriors in what they're doing in taking these young kids to tour this National Museum of African American History. I think it's awesome.
I applaud them as well, and I think it's a tremendous move on their part, led by Kevin Durant, because they're kids from his community, and I think it's a beautiful gesture. And it's the kind of thing that's incredibly inspirational, and he and the rest of the Golden State Warriors should be applauded for that. But to piggyback off of what Max is saying, I got an idea that I think would have been more piercing, more profound, and more direct. And it's something that I wish they could have done while still taking the kids to the African American Museum. I would have liked them to take themselves along with those kids, and I would have liked them to take them on Capitol Hill to see both senators and congressmen from both congressmen and congresswomen from both sides of the aisle. Because to me, if you really wanted to make a quote-unquote non-political statement, you know, when you take kids up on Capitol Hill and you introduce them to influential individuals, policymakers and what have you, individuals that have a lot to do with having some level of purview over their lives in terms of legislating things that ultimately will impact the lives of kids, I think it would have been a beautiful, even more beautiful gesture, not just to go to the museum, but not to stop there. Take them on Capitol Hill and take them to lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. You just don't have to go to the White House, because that's really sending a statement that's not political. That's apolitical.
Yeah.
You're sitting there,
that's
you're making, hold on, Max. You're sitting there and you're talking about Democrats, you're talking about Republicans, and you're showing a willingness to embrace and encompass any and all things that have something to do with what impacts our lives in this society. The fact that you'd be willing to meet with folks on both sides directly sends a clear and concise message to the President of the United States that our issue is with you because of your behavior, and it has absolutely nothing to do with politics, because we're willing to embrace the politics and the politicians, and we're willing to encourage young kids to open their eyes to being more involved in what have you, and while doing so, you're also sending a message that decorum and behavior matters. I think that would have been more profound.
Yeah, that's political participation. And I think what they're saying is to divorce this from politics. This is not about political participation. This is about the way we feel about social issues and the way we can use our platform to inspire people and to raise awareness. But by not meeting with lawmakers on either side, I think they send it. We have the same analysis and a different conclusion, Stephen A. I think they send a clearer message that this is about Trump and no one else. They don't want him there.
I think
they
that
don't want to.
said more
Now
than
he's
it's about Trump. Yeah, I think so.
Well, yeah. Right. That's why I say different conclusion, same analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the end, our point of departure is the message they're sending one of protest or one of inspiration. I see the message as one of inspiration. The only problem I have with your suggestion, Stephen A., the only thing I don't like about it is this, is it elevates politics to the front of everything. You know, to go to the White House originally, and I think in your estimation, Max, and probably Stephen A. as well, it still is this way. It doesn't matter the party holding the office. It doesn't matter the president. And you're pointing to this as the great exception. But what was great about it was this was the highest honor that seemingly the leader of the free world could bestow upon a team that won. I love the bipartisan nature of what you're talking about, Stephen A. But what I don't love is you are more than politics. I am more than politics. Max is more than politics. And them choosing to take kids to that National Museum of African American History, I feel like that's the positive side. That's not the protest. That's the message of inspiration that says, you know what? Here's who we are. Here's who you are. And we are all much more than talking about what we can do policy and politics. And just real quick, Stephen A.
Sure.
Clay Thompson said that. He said this is not about politics.
I agree. I hear where you're coming from, but I respectfully disagree with that point, Will, and it's important to highlight why. When we look at the election, we must remember that 2 million less African Americans showed up to the voting polls to vote for Hillary than voted for Barack Obama 4 years earlier. And so one of the things that has been a real issue, particularly in the African American community, but not solely the African American community, is voter participation. Every politician that you hear of speaks of voter participation and the importance of it. So what better way to send a message to those kids? I'm not saying don't take them to the African American Museum, but while you're right there, take them up with you on Capitol Hill, because that's a way of showing them in the future you get to play a significant role in shaping the future of our nation by participation. Well, what are you asking them to participate in? If you take them up to Capitol Hill and you show them, you know, this is where laws are legislated. This is where laws are implemented. This is the power structure of our nation. Pay attention to it, because you are the ones who will decide who's sitting up here on your behalf or on the behalf of various communities throughout this country in the future to come, in the years and years to come.
Yeah, I hear you.
If you do that, that shows that. And I think that's something that can't be summarily dismissed.
Stephen A., you may have turned my mind around about this a little bit, because this is all taking place in the context of the suppression of the African American vote. And so, to inspire young African American citizens to vote, or to eventually vote when they become of age, is a very important message to send right now.
Exactly. Exactly, especially when you want change. Don't just talk and moan about change. And don't think that everything is about protest. Yes, it has its place. But ultimately, it's about going to the voting polls and making sure that you vote in the office those who align with your level of thinking and what have you. And you can't rave and praise a former president like Barack Obama, but then ignore what he implores you to do when he implores you to go to the voting booth and actually cast votes. You can't sit up there and talk about how you support everything about him, but you ignore what he ultimately told you to do to create change. And it's not just about the president. It's about governors. It's about mayors. It's about district attorneys. It's about attorney generals. It's about sheriffs. It's about councilmen and women. It's about all of that. It's participation.
Yep. We applaud KD and the Warriors. We all agree on that. And don't forget, of course, they play tonight in our nation.